Good morning. It is, what day is it? Tuesday. My name is Charlotte. This is Chatting in Cars. I'm sorry if you can hear all the storm that is around me. This is a podcast based on talking about random topics. There is swearing. There is all kinds of topics which we talk about which are not exactly kosher. Here is your chance to turn it off if you don't want to hear it. I don't believe in holding back any kind of feeling associated with these topics, so obviously this is down to me, the talker. You don't have to believe this, absolutely. You can turn off and you can go back to your safe little environment and believe what you want to believe. Sorry, at the moment I'm just driving through the absolute damage of a hurricane. So if I pause, it's probably because I've just seen a building fall down. Joys of living in Australia. The topic for today is Durkheim's othering. Durkheim was a sociological philosopher, a sociologist, one of the very first. I'm pretty sure he came out of the Enlightenment era. I'm pretty sure, although I do need to fact check that, so it's been a while since I've talked about that kind of thing. But the idea behind Durkheim's othering is social groups which construct their identity through the creation of an alternative identity, which is basically, if you belong to a group, you will see everyone else who doesn't have similar traits to you as an other. This way we reaffirm our identity of who we are by saying we are not like them, which is kind of like what the UK does to America. I'm sorry, Americans. But you are quite loud and it's kind of off-putting in a nice way. It is to do with the psychology of creating a sense of identity. Everybody does it. We all say that we're not going to pick on anyone. We all say that we don't want to be exclusive and we want to be more inclusive. That's just the nature of being politically correct these days, is no one wants to point out that someone's different really, because we're all the same and we're all equal. Well, the reality of the situation is we're not all the same, and a lot of us haven't got the same equal opportunities. And that's really based on a lot of things like sex. I'm not saying gender, because I don't believe in gender, but sex, ethnicity, location, social class, social values, norms. There's a lot of othering going on that we might not know about. I mean, you just don't tend to look. You go, oh, that's what it is, and carry on. We'll get on with our day. I first came across Durkheim's othering in my sociology degree, which I was doing. What was I doing? I don't remember now, it was a few years ago. It was social sciences. I liked it first because I was doing it in my foundation unit. So sociology unit within my foundation unit at uni. That was great fun. I like that because it gives you sort of like the very basics on what sociology is, and then you go into like the deeper depth with the further units. What was I talking about? Sorry, I do tend to ramble while I'm sitting here watching, trees fall down and stuff like that, because we are in the middle of a hurricane. I'm hoping you can still hear me. For some reason, they want me to come into work. Oh, those crazy people. I'm a teacher, so I suppose I better. Otherwise, they don't get to dump their kids and run. Durkheim's othering, yes. It was part of what was I doing? Social sciences, social security, and international relations, to do with political machinations. For example, an example that would have been included in the unit had I done it today would be Putin's invasion of Ukraine. That would be, it would have been that kind of stuff. Looking at why people are tyrants or dictators or things like that. Which is quite interesting actually, because you come to know through history what kinds of people use othering to discriminate against each other and find it as use it as a vehicle to invade or control, manipulate, things like that. There are positive and negative sides to othering, of course. You've got to look at it critically. Positive includes, I suppose, you develop a sense of self. There's greater safety in being able to identify particular traits of an individual. Like maybe, I know you're not supposed to judge a book by a cover, but you can look at someone and go, oh, that looks a bit shifty. For my personal safety, I'm going to other that one. I don't want to get robbed today. So we've all done it, whether we want to or not. The negative side of things is, again, you do tend to judge a book by its cover. So you'll look at the common factors, and it does lead to stereotypes, which is not useful. Because you can't just paint everyone with the same brush. I prefer to look at the individual, to be honest, and what influences around them created this scenario where they acted in this particular way. Oh, that's what it... No, that was my psych degree. I was trying to remember. I also did a psych degree in behavior analysis, which sort of fed onto the sociology thing. That's a great idea. You should have a look at that. If you want to understand people, look at the behaviors they exhibit, where they come from, and why they do that kind of thing. And you'll be able to predict how they work on the next action, which is quite interesting. I use it with the kids, because I'm a teacher. I'm going, I know why you're going to do that. You want this. Very helpful. You shouldn't really paint everyone with the same brush, but generally you can have a look at some of the common factors and traits that each exhibit, and you can see where they're going to go, why they acted this way. I mean, it could teach you as a positive thing, sympathy and empathy for their life experiences. If you can see where it came from. For example, I'm working in an SES school. I know I keep relating back to this kind of example, but it's my most common exposure at this point. I work in low socioeconomic schools. I know the background because I lived it myself, and I can see why they act in particular ways. I know what kinds of parents they're coming from, what kind of resources they've got available to them. I know how their brain thinks because I've lived it myself. I know why they will kick off first thing in the morning if they haven't eaten, and I know what to do to fix that because, we've created a society where othering is useful. It keeps us safe. It helps us predict what we're going to be doing with the next person. It helps us understand why they might be acting certain ways. Some people just create this thing where they other them and exclude them, though. I think the best thing to do is to, maybe if you need to other them, understand where they're coming from and try and help them. Stereotypes, for example, create a hell of a lot of negative othering, where people get excluded based on their, physical appearance or their cultural norms and things like that. One of the worst and the most extreme versions of this was, one that everyone knows, the Holocaust, basically. That was a horrible, extreme version of othering where people were based on their cultural associations were exploited. They were exploited as well. They were also, gathered up and executed. It was a horrible, horrible thing. That was a misuse of othering. One positive aspect of othering could be trying to bridge the gap between ethnic inequality. For example, some ethnic groups have had a lot of, shit kicked on them by society. So if we try and build them up by identifying them first, I know when you sign up to Centrelink on the welfare system, the first thing they're going to ask you is, are you of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin? And to me, that sounds a bit racist, by the way. It's like, what does it matter? We're broke. We need money. We all need money. But at the same time, there are factors which exist, even in this country, even now, which will affect whether they have had the opportunity to access previous, supplies, services, which will bolster their home life. So you've got to take that into consideration. It tends to be that we have a lot of Indigenous people and Torres Strait Islander people, and to some degree we also get Samoans and Maoris that come over from New Zealand, similar circumstances that are facing poverty cycles and things like that, based on previous horrible experiences, a poverty cycle culture that's now forming where it's considered normal to be in poverty, and so there's no real push to get out of it. There's all kinds of things like that which just impact the situation, create a negative, not only stereotype, but also sense of othering, where people, and there are still people even now, even hopefully with our more PC view of things like BLM and stuff like that, that will still go, Aboriginal people, not good enough, or can't be arsed working, or stuff like that. It's the stereotypes which really drag down the people. Because if you feed that to yourself or within the group enough, you become, associated with that. You taint yourself. You start believing it yourself. And it creates a whole culture of disbelief and imposter syndrome and I can't do this because of who I am or where I came from. And you don't want that culture. It's not constructive. We want to bolster them up so we can get them moving, get them, included in society and things like that. Not just sitting on the fringes on the welfare system and not caring. We want to get them to the good positions where they can get good pay and increase their quality of life. And that's not just for the Aboriginal I keep wanting to say Indigenous, Torres Strait Islander people. It's all the different cultures, because Australia's made of a melting pot of all kinds of different cultures. Immigrants from everywhere, really. I mean, it's one of those big... It's like UK. It's like people come from everywhere. Because they with Australia, it's more like they want the land and the chance to, have a home and stuff free of war zones and things like that. In the UK, they probably move because of the money. It's like, there's some money here, but you gotta get into the mining sector and stuff like that. Whereas in the UK, there's all kinds of things over there that present a more appealing thing. There's not a lot of land, but there's jobs, I would hope, at this point. It's like, seemingly compared to the countries they're coming from. A lot of the migrants to UK come from war-torn countries because they've travelled through Europe, or terrorist-based countries, or things like that. And there's a stigma attached to that as well, which is both a safety-based one and a culturally stereotypical one. Those who come from... I remember when Osama bin Laden started doing his shit, there was a big stereotype about Islamic people being associated with that kind of business. And if you think about it, why would they do that? Why would they come to a country which doesn't actually have that kind of shit and then perpetuate it? It would just be... I mean, if you come from a war-torn country, why would you want to relive it in a safer country? Not absolutely safe, of course. UK still has a shitload of knife crime, stuff like that, murders. We still get shot over there and stuff. But why would you bring it with you? It doesn't make sense. So they saw this minor group of terrorists and assumed, all Islamic people are terrorists or are associated with it, or they're fine with it, or they support it, all the Al-Qaeda stuff. And they don't. It's a stereotype. No one actually believes that shit. You shouldn't. I mean, when it boils down to it, you should look at the individual. So what is the individual willing and capable to do? Does it reflect the people? No. They might be using the banner of Islam or Al-Qaeda, but to be honest, it tends to be the individual more willing to, blow things up than actually follow a, ideology, really, I think. It boils down to the individual. Because it's the individual that's going to deal with the consequences at the end. You can say that you belong to a group, but whether you actually do, I don't think so. I think, we shouldn't be looking at a group in terms of persecution. We should be looking at the individual who's willing to commit the crime. That's like when Elizabethan era, if you want to go back that far. It's like you had a few people who were on the Catholic side that were trying to take over the Protestants. And they just went through with mass burnings and stuff. It's like, you can't keep burning everyone to solve your problems. It doesn't help. It's like, well, it serves as an example to the others. It's like, no, it's a bit extreme. And that's why we left it in the past and we don't keep doing it. It's crazy. Have I been the recipient of othering? Yes. Yes, I have. Everyone has, to be honest. If you got bullied in school, you would have been the recipient of othering. On a very basic level, children are great at othering, particularly nasty little girls. Guys will sit there and haze each other because you're a dick, you got ginger hair, or they'll punch each other in the arm and shit like that. But it's also a sense of cohesion. Sorry, that was my breaking too sharply thing. For some reason, guys like to use it as a means of filtering out people who are willing to take on that sense of humour at the time. I mean, if you respond badly to their form of hazing and othering, then they tend to exclude you from the group. It's like, he's not getting the joke, he's a dick. Whereas girls will use it as a means to filter out people who don't fit in with their group. So you get the catty bitching about people behind their back, and if they find out about it and react in a negative way, then they get excluded from the group. So it's kind of the same but different. Guys tend to use it as a joke. Girls tend to use it as a means to get rid of people. I don't know. I could be wrong. honestly. This is just what I've witnessed in the playground. I'm going, girls can be quite nasty little shits. I mean, not all of them, but you always get that handful that are just bitches. I don't know why. Guys can be arseholes though. It's like this hazing goes too far to the point where it's just nasty. You're just torturing each other now. It's like, nah, that's a joke. Why is he missing a leg? I don't know. Didn't fit in with the group. It seems to me that it also perpetuates bandwagon jumping. I hate bandwagoning. I really do. Because it means that you're not thinking for yourself, you're just following the herd. And when I say following the herd, I don't mean, vapor trails and we all have to eat GMO-free food and shit like that. Which is kind of, in a sense, what othering is, because those people are pretty, elite, niche, elitist as well. I mean, I lived in a hipster area for a year or so, and I got, shit for not, having a nose piercing and shit like that. And it's like, oh, she's never done drugs. Ooh, she's not one of us. But I was sitting at a table, not that I should have been because these people are idiots, but I was sitting at a table with a bunch of 20-odd-year-olds with bangs and Birkenstocks and nose piercings. What's that middle one that they do to bulls? It's not just a nose piercing, it's I don't know what it is. But they all sort of had this, and they had dreadlocks and we're all swapping boys' clothes with girls' clothes. I'm like, yeah, whatever, mate, it's all dress ups. As long as it keeps you warm, that's what I'm concerned about. They're showing my age. And of course I was othered because I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, and everybody was vaping. And I'm sitting there going, I don't want to take this up just to belong to your stupid group, because A, I know it's destructive, and B, it's going to kill me, and it's expensive, and why the fuck would I do this? Besides the fact that I've got, nearly 20 years on you guys, who fucking cares what you're doing? You're all on very low minimum wage jobs with no idea of what you need to do by the time you get to my age to make it worthwhile, so I don't mind being othered, to be honest. That's the truth of it. At this age, I'm 37, I just don't care. It's like, she's not like us, this bitch behind her back. I'm going, I don't care. And there was a lot of bitching going on behind their back. You ever watch that movie Mean Girls? With the three girls? I was the redhead chick that walked in from Africa. I was also older than them by 10 years, at the least. So while they're sitting there talking about getting shit-faced and sleeping around, I'm sitting there going, look, dude, I just want to find another husband. That's all I want. I miss being married. I was married to an asshole, but I miss being married. Not in a kind of self-destructive way. But because I wasn't at the same life stage as these girls, I was othered. In high school and primary school, I don't know if I was othered so much as I fit in with the weird group. I was othered from the popular group because, again, I didn't want to smoke and drink and sleep around. I was hanging out with the weird kids that like talking about weird shit. It was great. None of us had any kind of pretensions where we had to, be queen bee and shit like that. We just kind of hanging out. I hung out with everyone though. There's like all kinds of weird people. I was hanging out with the stoners, the surfies. Who did we have? We didn't have any goths. We had a bunch of lesbians though. That was cool. Little mini social groups. I never got into the popular group, and I'm grateful for that actually, because it meant that I could touch on every other group. Because the social group that was the so-called popular group was a bunch of girls just slags, essentially. I had no interest in being one, and it made me more, I could transverse the other groups more easily, because even the other groups didn't really like the popular girls, even though they were deemed popular. I don't know how that happened. They're only popular with the boys that were willing to shag around. It's like, village bicycle, yeah. That's why you're popular, I get it now. But, the typical queen bee bitchy group. Same as the Mean Girls, oh my god. But no, it's pretty cool. I mean, don't be popular. You can talk to so many people, so many more people, and you can hang out with them and gain knowledge and understanding from other people. It's best not to be popular. Unless you count that as popularity, because I was more attached to more people than a small niche group. But I was othered. I was pretty much othered there, because considering I wasn't popular. I mean, I was, up until from 12 to 15, I was, 3 foot nothing and round. So I was never going to make it into the popular group because they were all like blonde and skinny. I'm like, I'm not going to fit in, dude. A little ginger kid running around. I wasn't that ginger, I was Auburn. Leave me alone, I didn't have the creepy freckles and shit. Leave me alone. But yeah, short and fat, and I was not deemed teenage, I suppose, sexy. And so I didn't appeal to the boys at that age. I only started appealing to the boys when I was 16 and developed an eating disorder, actually. That was kind of disturbing. I was like, ooh, she's so skeletal, how attractive. She must fit in with the popular girls. She must put out. No, actually, which came as a big shock, because then I started having guys ask me out, and I'm like, I don't understand the game, I don't understand what's going on. What is happening? Right now I'm just trying to get through exams and my abusive parents. Parenting methods. So please stop looking at me. I don't have time for this. It carries on today, Durkheim's othering. Should it be encouraged? In a PC culture, they say no because it creates negative othering, like racism, sexism, ageism. No one picks up ageism that much. It's interesting. I think we should look at that some more. But in a positive sense, it does give you a sense of identity. Nationalism. It does provoke xenophobia, which is fear of other cultures, as an opposite to nationalism. Yeah, there's good and bad sides to it. I don't like the stereotypical side of things, although I have perpetually seen examples in which stereotypes are supported, so I'm like, no wonder these fucking things exist. It's like, if you know you are part of the target group the stereotype is made for, why would you act like that? I don't know. It's odd. I'm sitting there going, what's the stereotype? Because what am I like? I'm European ethnicity, lower culture, I guess, lower socioeconomic status. I'm a teacher, but I'm not middle class by our standards. Middle class has got a fair whack of money. I am paycheck to paycheck. So I'm hoping to buy an apartment in 2 years from now, or at least put the down payment on. I'm saving up for that. So I am white, although I don't believe there is a white. I do believe there are many shades of brown. Melanin is brown. Oh, hello. So when people say we're black or we're white, these terms are outdated. We're all a particular shade of brown. That's all I can see. Strange. But it's not, in that sense, I'm talking ethnicity in biological terms. It could be based on the location you come from, is more accurate. Although I've known different people come from different areas. It is the strangest thing to hear, like, a person of Asiatic descent with a thick Glaswegian accent. That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I've grown up in Australia. There are a lot of Asian people here. And I'm not talking like Indian Asian. I'm talking like Chinese Asian. And they have the Australian accents. You're like, okay, yeah, sure. They have sometimes broken English. You go, yeah, sure, okay, yeah. So, yeah, okay. Maybe you didn't assimilate. I didn't assimilate. But then they come through with a thick Glaswegian accent. You're like, how the fuck did you get that one? It's so weird because you're waiting for a particular prescribed accent and then suddenly, like, what the fuck? When did you go to Glasgow? What the hell? Oh, it's crazy. It's interesting though because you get a weird mix of like a mismatch, and it's the novelty of it. And these people, in my book, instantly get adopted. I'm like, I like that you're weird and different. I'm taking you on. It's a novelty. I like it. Let's go. I had trouble assimilating into the Australian culture, and they definitely know that I'm not like them. I was raised by Cockneys, which is typically lower class, Essex. My parents came from... My mum came from Isle of Dogs. my dad came from Mile End, which is East London. You know, think Coronation Street. No, EastEnders, obviously. The program, the TV program with the Vic, the pub, and everybody getting drunk and having horrible scenarios. My granddad used to work on the docks. Apparently he knew the Prey Brothers, shit like that. That kind of culture, which is what my parents were escaped from by skipping country, because they didn't want us growing up in that. By skipping country, they were othered by their own family, because it was seen as bailing on your heritage, essentially. If you deflect from doing the same behaviours as your family or your social group do, then in my parents' case, they were running away or, you know, rejecting their own people, which is one of the negative connotations of othering. The positive thing was my parents removed us from large doses of crime, some of which my granddad might have been involved in. We don't know. He was a shady as fuck. But then he followed us over here, so it's like, fuck. He's always on the fiddle. They purposely went out of their way to other us to create a better life for us. So that's positive othering. But come over here and try to join in. My older brother and sister managed to do it quite well. I'm the third born. I don't have the social skills to deal with fitting in with the strangers. All my friends were English. I mean, my parents came over in a wave of English people. I mean, I'm not talking the upper crust, we've got money people. We're talking about Irish as them, dirt, poor. We got no money, so we came to Australia looking for money. And it's cheaper to live here as well, so we're going to get a house. 4 kids. Yeah. My younger sister has managed to assimilate quite well as well. She's all right. She's picked up. All 3 of my siblings have got like the Australian twang to their voice. I don't have it. I've got like a weird mix of my grandma's Irish, my parents' Cockney, English I've picked up from fucking God knows where, which is like proper Queen's English. I picked bits up everywhere, which kind of demonstrates the sort of melting pot that is Australia, because you get all kinds of accents coming in. I didn't assimilate. I hate AFL. I hate it. It's boring. I cannot imagine people watching that. Although I will watch soccer, which is actually football in England. A lot of things that are just deemed Australian culture, I look at it and go, that just sounds fucking stupid. Drinking culture. There is a big drinking culture. You gotta drink your VB. As far as I'm concerned, so many bogans who drink that shit. If we're going to go for a beer, and I don't drink anyway, I usually go for Guinness, but that's because it's been in my family. So it's like, it's Irish family, we drink Guinness. Irish English. I mean, my mum was drinking, wrong turning. My mum was drinking Guinness when she was pregnant with my brother, which probably explains his mental issues, but it was deemed one of those okay drinks when you're pregnant, because it's not only a cultural thing, but apparently it's got iron and stuff in it, which is good for pregnant women. And I'm going, I still think it's bad to drink when you're pregnant, but okay. Please tell me you weren't drinking when you had me. But in that social group, that's not othering. Drinking while you're pregnant is okay in that, as a cultural thing. It's incredibly bad from a doctor's perspective. You're like, why the fuck were you doing that? So the doctors would other you for that behaviour. Crazy. But at the time within that social group, my mum thought she was doing the right thing. She's like, yeah. But then again, my grandma was Irish and she was like a raging alcoholic. So it's also that part of the business. You take your experiences from your family. What is normal to the parents is normal for the kid, usually. And they pass that on. Unless, of course, you're breaking into generational curses, which is a podcast in itself I will talk about. Because I've broken quite a few now. As I'm getting older, I'm sitting there going, I just don't want this future for my life. So you start questioning what you're doing and is it working? Do you like it? And no, I don't like it. All right, so I'm going to change it. But again, that's a whole different podcast in itself. Dangers of othering, ostracized. Benefits of othering, validation. So I'm nearly at my destination now. It's been about 35 minutes or so. The storm seems to have dissipated. I'm hoping you guys have a good day. Oh, I'm hoping the rain goes away. Right now I'm kind of worried because the foundations on the inside of my apartment, which I'm renting, have massive cracks forming, and I'm like, that's kind of worrying. I really hope that goes away. It's not my house. I'm not allowed to plaster it or anything because that's part of the landlord's job. Oh, sugar, that's a side wind. Yeah. I'm looking forward to get my own apartment, I think. Just if only to be able to fiddle with things like that. I do remember renovating my apartment once I got it back from my ex-husband. That was lovely, very relaxing. I was doing the flooring and everything myself, which is odd for me. Why don't you just get someone in to do it? Because A, I'm broke, and B, I want to do it myself. So, yeah, I recommend. I mean, if you can buy the resources raw and do it yourself, and you learn a skill in the process, it's really cool. Stop relying on other people. What to take away from this? Okay. As I pull up to my destination. What to take away from it? There are good and bad sides to Durkheim's othering. Sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's not needed, sometimes it leads to generalization. Sometimes the generalization is useful, sometimes it actually impedes any kind of growth because you then tar everyone with the same brush. I would look more deeply into the concept of othering. It's very interesting to see what parts of our society actually are shaped by othering. What your part would be in this society as a result of othering. Whether we consciously or subconsciously do it, it's always good to know from a critical perspective how you've been shaped. I do believe in us shaping our reality in a social constructivist approach, because we are the sum of our experiences, basically. When they talk about nature versus nurture, it's not versus, it's includes, it's nature and nurture. You don't get a choice. So if you've got a predisposition to be an alcoholic genetically, and you're put into an environment where alcohol is encouraged, for example, it's part of your culture, it's part of the way you were raised, who's around you. You are going to be more predisposed to exhibit alcoholic characteristics and traits and behaviors. That will present you as someone to be othered because it's negative othering. Even if you're not an alcoholic, like my grandma was an alcoholic, my mum was not drinking at all when we were kids. But because grandma was an alcoholic, she would have been othered because she came from that kind of background. There is a large stereotype in the Irish culture that we're all alcoholics, so we're not. I'm a teetotaler. My mum never drank when she was around us, except for apparently when she was pregnant with us, which is probably the most important part in terms of fetal development. So ultimately, what we need to be careful of is what we're actually associating with other people. Look at the individual rather than look at the collective, because the individual that's accountable for their actions. It'll be the individual that takes the fall if something goes wrong. No amount of othering is going to, excuse their behaviours. It's their decision to be who they want to be. Right, I've just pulled up, so I'm going to have to go. I'm hoping this storm goes. I'm looking at these trees and going, please don't break and fuck up my car. Have a great day. Hopefully your day's less stormy and hurricaney than mine at the moment. I've got to go teach computers to a bunch of kids who will probably try and steal the computers later on. Great kids, I like them. Remember, try and be more inclusive. It's not down, not everybody gets the same life chances. Don't just assume everybody's the same, or everyone is different. It's down to the individual, as I said before. Have a great day. It's only Tuesday. So take it easy, okay? Go find a nice biscuit or something, okay? I'll see you later. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.